Hi, this is Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio and welcome to week 25 of creating a positivity deck. We are now entering the creative state of being, and our word for this week is Envision. And I'll say a bit more about Envision shortly. But first off, I want to prepare my cards for this new state of being. Now, I did take my time preparing my cards, but I've put this particular part onto double speed, otherwise it would be a very long video. And for anyone joining for the first time, I just wanted to show how I prepare my cards. Now, I do sand them down. If your cards are older and more paper-like, you may not have to do this, but mine have quite a plastic coating, so I sand each of them back and front. I'm now going to prepare the backs, and a quick way of doing this, because I like my backs to be similar, I tape them all together just with a small piece of masking tape, and this then means that I can flip them over and decorate the backs all at once, and I find this quite an effective way to do it. So there they're all done, and all I'm going to do now is to take another little piece of the masking tape and just cover those little holes. I don't mind if a bit of paint seeps through, but by and large I'm going to try and keep the fronts of those cards clean, and I just give them another dust down. There is quite a lot of dust comes up after sanding. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on just a thin coat of gesso. As I say, it looks as if I'm doing this quickly, but I really was just taking my time and really savouring each and every step. And I dry in between, and I will actually put on a second layer. Now you'll see in a moment that I am using mainly indigo as my background colour. That's kind of the colour that I've chosen for this set of cards. There's no rhyme or reason to that. That was just a kind of colour that I was drawn to, and I do add a couple of other colours. So let me say a bit about the creative state of being. We started way back in week 1 with slow down, and my thoughts there were very much about trying to get us to slow down, to relax, to breathe, to find our kind of special place, giving us time to think in a sense. We then moved on to the rise state of being, and rise was very much about that notion of when we wake in the morning, we rise, we stretch, we move, and so on, and we worked through the various 12 prompts for that phase as well. Well, now I want to change the energy a bit and to think about us as being creative. Now, it doesn't mean to say that we'll go everything hammer and tongs. I am still very much treating this as an exercise in kind of mindfulness. I want to be there and in the moment. I'm not going to rush any cards, but it is thinking about that kind of creative energy that we bring to the positivity that we're going to put into our cards. I believe we're all creative beings, and we might show our creativity in different ways, but at our very core, we are creative, and that can manifest itself in art, in craft. It could be working with wood, it could be working with words, as in poetry or writing. It can just be about coming up with creative solutions to things that we have to do at work, whatever. We're all creative. And if you're following along doing this, then, you know, I would ask you through this phase to think about being creative and to think about that creative energy that you bring, not just to this project, but to all the projects. And, you know, I spent a little bit of time doing the background to these cards. I don't know how long, I probably, including sanding, about 30 minutes or so. So as I say, I wasn't rushing it. I was very much enjoying it. Now, with this set of cards, I'm switching things around a bit. And whereas with the slow down and the rise states of being, with this one, I am not going to journal first. I will know the word, but what I'm going to do is to create the card. Then I'm going to sit and think about the card and try and establish if it's telling me something. So if there's something coming from deeper within me that comes out from me having created the card rather than me writing, journaling first. It's just a different way to go about things. And I think from time to time it's good to switch things up. So, no matter if it's doing a positivity deck or if it's doing something else, it's good to kind of change things round a little bit just to see if we start to create differently or start to think differently. So I'm almost finished creating the backgrounds. I'm just going to take this white pen now and do some dots and other lines, just adding a little bit of detail on the cards. And then once that's done, I will start on my card for this week for the word Envision. So backs are done, and all I'll do now is to start to take all the cards apart. Now you'll see there's some bits and pieces of colour has transferred. Doesn't matter because that will all be covered up one way or another over the coming weeks. So here we go. I have my card for this week and I'm thinking about Envision. So I had a look around my studio and I'm trying not to overthink this. I was just trying to see what intuitively I was called to. And I pulled out these pieces of collage papers, and you would also see that little eye thing that came out of my collage box. Now obviously Envision, vision, the eye, that kind of jumped out at me right away. But I pulled all of these out and I knew I would start with collage. I just felt that was the right way to go. I had pulled out some paints, but in the end I don't use them very much. So this particular piece of collage was just an envelope that I had painted or perhaps jelly printed in the past. And you'll see here that I've slowed the film back down to normal speed because I do want you to get the sense here of the care that I'm taking, of the time that I'm taking. I'm not rushing this at all. My intention is simply to enjoy the process, to make this a positive process. And whilst I have Envision in my mind as a prompt, I'm actually not really thinking about the word at all, beyond that initial thought of the prompt is Envision, what materials do I feel called to use on this particular card. So I'm just using a glue stick to stick down my collage elements. And if you're following along each week, I'd be interested to know your thoughts on how you find doing this process the other way around. So, you may choose to still do the journaling at the start. That's entirely up to you. But if you do choose to do it this way, where you create the card first and then journal, let me know what you think about changing it. Does it feel different to be doing it this way? Better? Worse? Or just a different way of doing it? So I'm really pleased to be entering this creative state of being. I've enjoyed the other two very much, But for me, there's something almost, I don't know if symbolic's the right word. I am just recovering from having had another virus, and to be honest, it knocked me for six. Again, this is about my third one this year. And, you know, I'm okay, I'm fine, not looking for sympathy, just letting you know why I've not been around much. The one thing that has kind of kept me going in some ways is having had my positivity deck card to do each and every week. I enjoyed each and every card. Some weeks, though, I'll be honest, it was an effort just to dig out the materials, just to set up my filming equipment. But if I hadn't had it, if I hadn't had my card to do, or if I decided not to do it, then yeah, I don't know where I would have been. I wouldn't have been creating at all. And that's been for a good few weeks. So that's one of the reasons I've not been around much in the Facebook group, and I do apologise for that. I am starting to feel a lot better again, thankfully. And as I say, it just seems to have come at a good time now that entering this creativity state of being. So I'm just adding little bits of collage here and there. No rhyme or reason, just very much doing this intuitively. And I'm going to say a bit more about working intuitively in the coming weeks. It's something that I've touched on before, and every so often I get some questions around that. So over the coming weeks I will say more about working intuitively, or at least what I think working intuitively is about, because different people will have different views, and that's absolutely fine. I know that one of the questions I had at one time, question or comment, was, that I talk about working intuitively, but I also talk about working with tension. How, those seem to be opposites. And I suppose my working with intention is simply the kind of enjoying the process, enjoying each and every step of the process, and having intention in the sense of wanting to make this a positive experience, wanting to make a positive card. Whereas the working intuitively is more about not having a particular plan in mind for what I want each and every card to look like. So today, as I said, I just looked around and waited for the materials almost to jump out at me, to feel drawn to the materials, and then just to sit with them and to put them on without any particular plan. So I'm just about at the end of my glue stick here, just trying to get the last remnants out of it. Definitely need to replace that very soon. And just taking care to make sure that each piece is in place. And all I'll do now is to cut off the excess material that's hanging over the edge of the card. So I just take a second to look over it. And this is the eye that I'd also drawn out. And I'm just taking off some of the excess white paper that's around it. And then I'll look at where that might sit on the card. So I decide that I will use that, but I'm not yet ready to glue it in place. So I'm going to take this white paint, it's just a craft paint, and I'm just going to put a little bit onto the card. Just trying to get the various pieces to blend together a little bit and just to knock some of the colour into the background. Now I'd taken out far too little at that point, so I'm just going to squeeze some onto a piece of paper and then to start to add a bit more. And for me, that creates a slightly dreamy type effect as well. So I'm not looking for it to be too thick, just a light layer. And because I'd used so little, it's virtually dry at this stage. But I will just take my heat tool and go over it for a second or two. So once that's done, I decide I will use some colour pencils. I think I said in the previous week I don't use these an awful lot, but when I used them, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, I enjoyed it, so I thought I'm going to use these a bit more. So this particular colour is deep cadmium. And I'm not going to do a lot of colouring in as such, I'm more just going to use it as a kind of outliner. I think there's a little bit where I colour that bit in the centre in, but mainly I'm just using it to, I guess, kind of enhance some of the colours that's there. Having knocked them back with the white a little, I just want to bring out some of the colour just in places. Now again, there's no particular rhyme or reason as to why I'm doing this. I'm just working intuitively, just working where and how I feel I need to. Now just taking the red, and I did like the way just these small patches of red were on the card, and all I'm doing is just very gently adding a bit of more red with the colour pencil. And at this point in time I have absolutely no idea where this card is going. I know that I will probably use that eye, but beyond that, that's all I know. Then some of the detail sitting underneath starts to kind of call out to me, so I decide that I'm just going to work with some of that. I'm just taking this blue colour and just going around some of the dots that were on that piece of collage paper below. Just highlighting, in a sense, some of those. And again, just picking up some of the other detail. This time using indigo. And sorry, that goes slightly to focus. It's one of the problems of working so close. It just takes the camera a second or two just to refocus. And now I'll just do a little bit more on those circles. I think this was as much an exercise in mindfulness, of just being in the moment, as it was of actually creating something. Clearly I am creating, but my focus was really just on just kind of going with the flow, I guess. And now I just want to put some indigo around the edges, and the indigo kind of blends a little bit with the yellow up in that top left hand corner. And even just a simple task of putting colour pencil around the edge, I just take my time with and enjoy it just for that moment of being creative. And one of the things I enjoy about this type of card, aside from doing it at the time, is actually looking later at all the detail that sits underneath. Now, these various pieces have been created at different times, and obviously when they're created, I'm not thinking about how they'll all sit together, but they just all end up in a box and just come out for this one particular card in the way that they have. And to me, there's just something almost magical about looking at how they all sit together. So again, looking at the eye. And perhaps I work slightly less intuitively there in terms of looking at where I'm going to place the eye, but just knowing that I do want it on the card. And I'm now going to write my word. I hadn't until that point even thought about where I would put the word. And just keeping it very simple in terms of how I write it. And just tear off another couple of little edges of paper there, and then I'll glue that down and in place. So I do hope to be back in the Facebook group very soon. As I say, my apologies for not being around much recently, but hopefully I'm fully recovered again and can get back into the swing of being in the group and replying to comments and whatnot. So this is turning out to be quite an abstract card. And I'm looking here at whether I want to add some more little bits of detail. And I tear a piece out here, and you'll see that I start to try it in different places on the card, but actually in the end I don't use it. It just didn't feel right. So at this point I start to do just a little bit more detail on the card. It felt like it needed something, but you know, I wasn't sure what. So again, I just looked around to see what I had in terms of supplies, and I decided that I needed to emphasize the eye just a little bit more. So just using this black pen to extend what I guess are the eyelashes on the eye, but there's something about it relating to kind of seeing, to focus, and it was just starting to bring that out for me. I play about a little bit with the word. I don't want to go over it completely, but just add a little bit of black around some of the edges. Now taking this Pentel hybrid gel pen in white, and again I'll just add a little bit of detail here and there. Some very small dots going within the circles. And some of this detail is almost so small that it's quite difficult to see unless you're looking up close. And then just using the white a little bit on the word. And all I'm doing here is adding a few little lines. Now, of course, this time round, because I hadn't journaled, I didn't have anything particular in mind when I was trying to create the card, but I was trying to make it a positive card that I would take something positive from. So here I am, I'm just going round the eye. Because this had come out of a magazine, I guess, it felt a bit too neat, and I just wanted to kind of go over it a bit. Not trying to make it hand drawn or anything, but just trying to knock off some of those very neat edges on it. And again, just doing a few little marks, black marks there. Checking that the eye is dry, and all I'm going to do is to add that white dot just to give it that sense of light in the eye. Now just taking this pale brown and adding in a little bit more kind of colour in that centre bit, and just a little bit else where it had started with the kind of yellow. And I decide that's the card done. So I turn now to my journal. So I start by writing in the index the word Envision, and then I'll go to my main journal pages and start to think about what the card tells me about the word envision. As I sit there thinking about what do I envision for myself, I'm trying to capture that, but I'm trying to capture what has actually come through from doing the card. So very much reversing it this time, and I'll take the card and I'll look at it for a moment or two and see if there's anything that the card actually tells me this time. And for me, the eye is very powerful in the card, and there's also something about depth in the card, and I think that comes through from the various layers. And when you do your card might tell you something completely different. But for me, this is part of being in the creative state of being. I've swapped things round. I'm challenging things in a way. And what came out for me very much was I envision being happy and healthy, and that very much linked back to self-love and self-care that we spoke about very early on in the process, back in the slowdown phase, I think. And there was a connection here, just thinking back to what I'd written at that time, and how that keeps coming to the fore. And so at this point where I'm in that creative phase and I'm trying to envision what I want, where I want to be, then the self-love and the self-care become very important again. And what the card was also telling me is that I need to look more closely at what I want, and also that I need to listen to myself more. But there was very much something about the need to go deeper. Quite what that means at this point in time, I don't know exactly, but it's about going deeper. It's about exploring more. And I think a lot of that is to do with my creativity and where I want to go with it. I want to create more, but I think that's very much come from not having done much by way of art and craft for the past few weeks. You know, I'm missing it, so I do want to create more. But you see me there, underline, go deeper. I have more work to do, and this card was very positive for me in the sense that it helped me realise that. So that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed this. Do let me know how you're getting on, and bye for now.